Thank you so much. We have a full house tonight to discuss what's the impact of data centers in our communities. My name is Jacqueline Casaza, and I am the president and co-founder of Go Green Glen, Ellyn. We are co-hosting tonight's event along with local environmental advocacy groups Greener Grove and Go Green Villa Park. We have a group of excellent panelists here tonight that I'll introduce you to in a moment, but I wanted to share a few logistics for the evening first. We're going to begin with a panel discussion that's going to go about 45 minutes, and afterwards we're going to open up to the audience for questions for an additional 10 minutes. In order to facilitate audience questions and try and fit in as many as possible, we are asking that you please write down your questions on these bright orange cards. These will be collected by volunteers and brought up to the moderator. Volunteers, can you please raise your hands? Thank you, lovely volunteers. So if a question pops to mind, just feel free to put your hand up and the volunteer will come around and collect it. We'll pick those up around 7:10. And there should also be pens located near your seat, or you can signal to a volunteer to bring you a pen. And after this 10-minute Q&A period, the panel will officially conclude, and then it's up to the discretion of panelists to continue to hang around to answer anything after. Tonight's session is being recorded, and the recording will be posted to the Greener Grove and Go Green Glen, Ellyn YouTube channels. Greener Grove and Go Green Glen, Ellyn claim copyright of this recording, and it may not be edited or distributed without our written permission. And then finally, tonight's panelists are here representing their own views, and their responses do not necessarily represent the views of the host organizations. So now to introduce our panelists and moderator. So first, our moderator for this evening is Chloe Pooler. Chloe serves as Greener Grove's treasurer and recently graduated with a Social Impact MBA and certificate in Environmental, Social, and Governance ESG reporting. Thank you, Chloe, for moderating. Down on the end here, Dr. Maria Iturbide-Chang is originally from Guatemala and has lived in Northwest Indiana for the past 4 years. She currently serves as Director of Water Resources for the Alliance for the Great Lakes, where she leads regional strategies to protect Great Lakes water quality, promote sustainable water use, and advance science-based policies across the basin. Her work is grounded in water research and wetland protection, with a strong focus on translating science into effective policy and on-the-ground conservation outcomes. Maria is also a member of the Strategic Advisory Group of UN Water, where she contributes to the assessment and coordination of water-related work across 36 United Nations agencies, with a particular focus on water governance and advancing Sustainable Development Goal number 6, which is clean water and sanitation. Thank you, Maria, for being here. In the middle here, we have Zoe Huspen from Citizens Utility Board. Zoe joined Citizens Utility Board in June 2024 after graduating from the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana with a degree in environmental sustainability. She is eager to advocate for a sustainable energy future, focusing on building decarbonization and engaging with community members. Thank you, Zoe, for being here. And then finally, Dr. Mohammed Heidari is a research assistant professor at Northwestern University's Trienens Institute for Sustainability and Energy. His research focuses on how rapidly growing energy users, such as data centers, can be powered in a clean, affordable, and reliable way. He develops system-level models to evaluate trade-offs among electricity demand, water use, greenhouse gas emissions, grid reliability, and community impacts. His recent work examines energy strategies for AI-driven data centers and the role of clean power, renewables, and grid planning in supporting the growth of digital infrastructure. Dr. Heidari collaborates with industry, utilities, and policymakers to translate technical analysis into practical decision frameworks for sustainable energy development. Panelists, thank you so much for being here this evening and giving us your time and expertise on this important issue. Now I'm going to turn it over to Chloe to kick off the panel.
Thank you. Well, hello all in the room and online. Again, thank you to our panelists. I am thrilled to be our moderator this evening. It is a joy. So without further ado, my first question is for all of you. In 2 minutes or less, tell us a little bit about yourself in layman's terms. Thank you for those bios. What is your career journey in your current role?
Sure. Should I start? Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm so happy that I'm here and thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy this type of discussions, and I have been involving in this type of discussions since I was a PhD student, and I have been involving in different discussions related to environmental engineering and sustainability. Before going further, I should say that today I'm speaking on behalf of myself, and my comments reflect my research and specifically ongoing research, and it's not the official position of Northwestern University. And similar to any other infrastructures, we need to understand the site-specific analysis to understand the impacts or the benefits of infrastructures, including data centers. I'm a research faculty at Northwestern University, and my work focuses on developing models for energy and industrial systems, and to understand what would be the impacts of these systems on the environment and, to some extent, economy and social impacts. My main focus is on environmental engineering because of my background is in environmental engineering and sustainability. And related to today's discussion, I have been working on data centers and the impacts of data centers on energy portfolio in the US and also globally. And also, in my research, we are trying to understand and answer questions such as, for example, what would be the impacts of using renewable energy instead of fossil fuels for data centers? What would be the impacts of developing data centers on a state and national level, water, for example, consumptions, water demand, and energy consumptions, and hopefully develop this type of technology in a more responsible way. And I'm happy to be here to talk and answer any type of questions. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Zoe, and I'm here with Citizens Utility Board. I use she, her pronouns, and as was previously mentioned, I am Carbon-Free Buildings Coordinator. Are you guys having trouble hearing me? Hello?
I think it projects. I think it just records, so we will project.
Okay, I will project. Thank you for letting me know. Is this a little bit better? Okay, thank you. Thank you. I didn't want to talk too loud into the microphone. Regardless, I am Carbon-Free Buildings Coordinator at Citizens Utility Board. Citizens Utility Board is a nonpartisan nonprofit advocating for clean and affordable energy. We were founded in 1984. We receive grant funding and donations from consumers. That is how we keep our operation moving. So I am our electrification point person. This means that I educate consumers like yourselves on how to electrify your home. So that could look like switching out a gas furnace for an air source heat pump, for example, which transfers heat instead of burning fossil fuels to create heat. That could also include switching out your gas stovetop for an induction cooktop, which is an electric cooktop that is more effective. So I teach people about the different tax credits and rebates that are available to electrify your home in any manner that you choose to do so, which has been challenging amidst an ever-changing federal landscape this last year, as I'm sure we've all seen and experienced. So you might be wondering, how does this relate to data centers? Well, this has been a newer issue that I've begun to address in my role because it does tie deeply into electrification, because in order to electrify, we have to ensure that our electricity remains reliable and affordable, and the demand for electricity that data centers pose is a real risk to our efforts to transition to a cleaner, more affordable energy economy. So that is why I'm here to talk about this issue today in terms of how it impacts your electricity bill and what steps we can take at the state level and possibly at the federal level to mitigate these impacts.
Well, hello, good night. My name is Maria Iturbide-Chang. Can you hear me? My name is Maria Iturbide-Chang, and as she was saying, I'm originally from Guatemala, where my connection to water resources began many decades ago. I remember, just to share a little story, when I was around 3 years old, my dad used to take his family, a family of 5, to this very beautiful river in Guatemala, the Motagua River, where I spent most of my childhood swimming, enjoying nature, wildlife, watching the fish in the river. I had the opportunity to come back to the same place 15 years later, and what I saw was terrible, highly polluted. The smell was terrible. There was no life, no fish anymore. And that day, I decided to dedicate my life for the protection of natural resources. Wherever I was going to protect and defend natural resources. I had the opportunity to be the executive director of a water fund in Guatemala, where I learned to speak the language for corporations. In corporations, you don't talk about water conservation. You have to talk their language, and their language is in economical terms. What's the impact of not having water resources? So that gave me another way of thinking about how we have to address water resources and how we have to address the protection and management of our water resources. I made Indiana my home 4 years ago, and I serve as the Director of Water Policy for Hoosier Environmental Council, where I led state organizations and also advocate for, of course, wetlands and water resources at the state level. 3 months ago, I started in the Alliance for the Great Lakes as the Water Director. I'm excited to bring all my knowledge and experience to the Alliance. I want to protect wetlands. They are the Swiss knife of nature. And that's something that we are going to focus on the following years, also to improve research. And from a data center perspective, we know data centers are the demand. They are the ones that demand water resources, but we need to understand what's the supply side as well. And that's something that I would like to bring to the Alliance. So I'm very happy to be here with you and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Wow, thanks. What an esteemed panel we have here with a variety of backgrounds. Amazing. I think our first question then we'll throw back to you, Maria, where we have a couple of slides prepared. We're here to talk about data centers. What does that even mean? Can you give us an overview of what a data center is and how we use them? Would you like it, or would you like me to click? Sure.
So who knows what is a data center? Yeah, kind of? Okay. So data centers are something very interesting. And I will give you a tour around my cell phone for you to understand what's a data center. So this is my cell phone. And as you can see, I have the gadgets of FaceTime, mail, maps that help me to come to this place, the calendar. I have emails, 576 emails. But let's take a look to my photos. So here I have my collection. I have memories. I have so many screenshots. I have so many important and valuable things for me. I got my first phone when I was doing my PhD in 2014, and I took my graduation ceremony video. I took so many pictures with so many friends in New Zealand. So those are things that I care a lot and that are very valuable for me. I have on this phone, as you can see, 14,795 items stored in my phone. And from these items, I have 789 videos. I have selfies, 2,000 selfies. I have some very beautiful panorama pictures of these beautiful landscapes of the places that I've been. So there is a lot of information on my phone. In a normal phone with no capacity, it has the ability to store just 100 pictures, which is not enough, right? After 14 years of having my phone. So I decided to buy extra storage, and that's the iCloud. So here can you see in my phone I have the storage, and that information is storage in the cloud. And that's something that comes to our mind. We used to have these file cabinets. Do you remember? We used to have these VHS recorders. We used to have all these photo albums, but now everything is stored in the cloud. But the cloud is just a lot of computers that store that information for us. And so is going to explain all the different capacities or differences between all the data centers that we have. But the idea is that these data centers, even though we don't like them, we need them. I was just sharing with Zoe that this week I went through a medical screening in a Zoom call. My surprise was that I cannot even say a person, but the AI who did the 15-minute interview of my health screening was an AI. And I share with that, I don't know how to call person or AI, that I had cancer in 2020. And even that person, I don't know how to explain, to refer to that thing, she said to me, I'm so sorry you went through that. It's scary. It is scary. And after 15 minutes, that AI referred me to a real person. And I just share with that person that it's so scary that even going through a medical screening, we are using technology. So even though we don't like data centers, even though we are against them, it is important to realize that we need data centers. We need places to store our photos, our videos, our insurance information, our financial information, the bank statements. Everything is stored now in the cloud. So that's where the connection comes from data centers and how we are using data centers right now. Who watch a movie during the weekend? Who stream a movie during the weekend? That's AI, Netflix, Prime, Hulu, all these things. We used to have, what was the company? Blockbuster. Do you remember? We don't have that anymore. We have data centers, and we are streaming all these videos. So in one way or another, we make that company grow. We make them, and we make all the things that they are doing right now because we need them. So in one way or another, it is important to realize that we have to fight for a sustainable data center, and that's what we're here for. Just to explain, I think that things can be done in a sustainable way.
Thank you. Keep that microphone, Maria, because I think we want to double click into that then. Each of you guys works in a different role in industry, but how is that involved in this topic? So for you, Maria, like how do data centers impact our water supply?
Sure, and here it is the Great Lakes region. We work in 8 states around the Great Lakes. As you can see here, every red dot is the amount of data centers that state has. And just to let you know, I did this presentation in February, at the beginning of February, and when I updated the information yesterday, I had to add so many new data centers to this graph. So how does that affect? First of all, the cumulative impact. All these data centers, they connect to a public water system. And the public water system withdraws water, could be from underground water or for rivers, right? So that's withdrawal. That's something they are taking off nature and they are using it. Sometimes they discharge water. We don't know the quality of the water they are discharging. There is non-consumptive use, water that evaporates. So that's water that the basin loses through evaporation. So that's a way that we have to think about data centers. And what we are doing in the Alliance for the Great Lake, we are advocate at the state level. So as a regional organization, we align, we convene with state advocates, and we help them to integrate the sustainability in the bills they are proposing. We are fighting for transparency, for reporting reporting the consumption of water resources. We are fighting for community benefit agreements because people need to know before the data center comes to the region, right? So those are the things that we are doing. And we also, in order to have the policy in order, we have to create the science. So we are doing research on the supply side to understand the amount of water we have in order to provide that service. So that's what we do as the Alliance for the Great Lakes in the region.
Zoe, would you like to elaborate on how data centers impact the energy supply?
Yes, I'd be happy to, if you don't mind jumping ahead to the... Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm sure you all really want to be thinking about your electric bills on a Tuesday night after work, but we do need to talk about them because this is how the data centers are tie in directly is your electric bill. So first, I just want to give you a big picture of what you're familiar with. So as you all know, ComEd is your electricity bill utility here in Northern Illinois. So this rate that I have on the screen, that is our non-summer rate that we have right now. It is 9.66 cents per kilowatt hour. This is the price that we pay for the amount of electricity or kilowatt hours that we use on our bills. There's also a summer rate, so the ComEd supply price changes twice a year. The summer rate tends to be a bit higher, so if you've seen that before on your bill, that's why. So in order to understand how data centers impact your electric bill, we need to go a little bit deeper. So 2025 electric rates were 47% higher than the previous years due to the most recent capacity auctions. Before we talk about capacity auctions, we have to talk about an entity called PJM Interconnection. PJM is short for Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland Interconnection, which I know seems a little bit silly because we're here in Illinois, but this does affect us. PJM Interconnection is a regional transmission organization, also known as an RTO. They are the largest grid operator in the country, serving 67 million customers across 13 states. So although that name denotes an East Coast connotation, they actually do touch on Northern Illinois. And there's another grid operator called MISO that operates for the majority of the rest of Southern Illinois. So if you've heard MISO before, that's what that's referring to. So PJM holds auctions generally each year annually to determine the price for reserve power or capacity. These auctions are designed to happen 3 years in advance. They don't always happen 3 years in advance due to backlogs, but that's how they're supposed to be. So this capacity cost makes up roughly 20% of the price ComEd customers pay for electricity. So if you look at your electricity bill under the supply section, you will not see this charge denoted unless you're on a thing called hourly pricing, where what you pay per kilowatt hour changes hourly, in which case that would be a line item called capacity charge, if you were curious. So it's this thing that you don't really think about, but it does make up 20% of the price that you're paying. So when I say capacity, I'm referring to extra payments that we give power plant operators for the commitment to have enough reserve for sudden demand spikes. So let's say it's a hot summer day in July, everybody wants to have their air conditioning on. That is when the capacity cost comes into play, because we are giving those power plant operators that extra payment to ensure that they will be able to provide enough electricity for those very specific days of the year where we are close to hitting peak demand, because we all want to use our air conditioners to their full capacity to stay cool and comfortable. So I will be talking about the capacity auction prices and why they've jumped significantly, but we're going to save that for a little bit later on here.
Can
Do you have another slide? Yes. Thank you. Great. Oh, sorry. Okay, so Mohammed, turning to you then. Could you speak to us a little bit about how data centers are built and that impact there?
Sure, I can do that. So let's talk about how data center types and configuration first, and then we can discuss how it's built and what are the main part of data centers and what would be the impacts on the water. And I will give you some numbers, rough numbers, based on our estimations. So we can divide data centers into different types. For example, we have a small type of data centers that they're usually less than 1 megawatt capacity, and and the area for that facility is less than around 5,000 square feet. For medium and large data centers, they are mainly between 1 to 5 megawatt for medium data centers, and around 5 to 20 megawatts with around with less than 2.5 acre area for the large data centers. But those are for normal computing. For AI specifically, we need hyperscale data centers that need at least 100 megawatt capacity. And we will discuss what those numbers and what does that mean. And they can be as big as a 5 acre land to be even more than 2 million square feet area. So they are really large. So we can divide a typical data center to three major sections. The main major section is IT section that we have servers, storage, and networking. That's the heart of the data center that we need lots of energy to support what they need for computation. Also, we have cooling system that we need lots of water to reduce the temperature of the servers and IT section. And also, we have other parts like the power plants. Sometimes we have an on-site power plant like solar panels, and sometimes we have more conventional. We can use conventional electricity grid, and we have a backup storage for support for power supply. But let's talk about resource consumptions and how much water and energy a typical data center, hyperscale data center consume. In a typical hyperscale data center that we consider, we assume around 100 megawatt capacity, the direct water consumption per year is around 100 million gallons. It's equal to around 1,500 households. Indirect water consumption, which is mainly because of the energy we need to produce, we need water for producing energy for the hyperscale data center, it's around 1 billion gallons, which is equal to 12,000 households. And if we compile all of the data centers in the United States, we can see that in 2023, more than 200 billion gallons have been consumed in that year. And it is expected that by 2028, it will increase to around 700 billion gallons, which is around the annual water consumption of around 9 million households. In terms of energy consumption, typical data center, as I said, is around 100 megawatt, and it can be even much higher than this number. But it's around the annual electricity consumption of 85,000 households. And if we compile all data centers in the US, we can see that on the slide that in 2023, we consume 176 terawatt hour, which is around 17 million household electricity consumption per year. And it's expected to increase to 600 terawatt hours and 1,700 terawatt hours per year by 2035, which will be even more than the whole US household. But does that mean that we should not support data centers, or are they bad equipment, technology? I think of course it's not, but we need to develop this type of technologies based on responsible planning. Sustainability can help us to understand how we should plan our data centers and any other infrastructures. When we say sustainability, it means we need to consider environmental, social, and economic impacts of the product or services and have a trade-offs. And it's not easy to develop a technology or an infrastructure that meet all the three criteria of these sustainability aspects. And it's even harder for new technologies, emerging technologies, such as data centers, that when we compare to the historical digital technology usage growth in last 20 years, and compare it with the personal computers and internet, we can see that generative AI adaptation rate is almost double compared to personal computer and internet when they invented in the US. And so this can create lots of uncertainty in all of the analysis and all of the assumptions that we have these days. So if we can see this graph on the horizontal axis, we have years from 2024 to 2030, and the vertical shows the electricity consumption. And those lines show the different electricity projection based on different models. All are scientific models. But because of the different assumptions, because of the uncertainty, and because we don't know how much AI we are going to use in our daily life as an industry, in commercial sectors, in our daily life. So it can be very different. And any percentage difference in our projection means millions or billions of dollars, and it can definitely change the impacts. So for example, in 2030, we can see the different projection. The difference is actually around 600 terawatt hour. It's a big uncertainty in our analysis. That shows that we need to research more about data centers and understand the real impacts, real growth of AI, generative AI, ChatGPT, and this type of large language models, and improve our understanding as we go further and develop our data centers.
Wow, thank you. I'll take that over. Improve understanding is where I'm at. I feel like I've learned so much already. Thank you, guys. Now to throw you guys each some specific questions, I'd love to toss it back to Zoe to hear a little bit more on that economic side of the impact that we grid-connected folks can expect as data centers are proposed in our area or region as we go.
Certainly. Okay, so just to briefly recap, PJM is our grid operator here in Northern Illinois. ComEd acquires their electricity from PJM, and annually PJM holds that capacity auction that we were talking about to determine the price for reserve power. And the results of that capacity auction are very important when it comes to the prices that you pay on your electricity bills. So bear with me here, I'm going to throw some numbers at you. So the capacity auction prices are as follows for the next couple of years. From 2024 to 2025, the price was $28.92 per megawatt day. For 25 to 26, the price was $269.92 per megawatt day. From the year 26 to 27, the price is $329.19 per megawatt day. Lastly, for 27 to 28, the price is $334.40 per megawatt day. I also want to note that those last three numbers I just told you are all record prices for this capacity auction. So now you're probably wondering, why is that happening? Why is this the case? Per the Independent Market Monitor, in PJM's last three capacity auctions, data center forecasts actually made up $21.3 billion, or 45% of the capacity costs. In other words, 45% of the electricity that we are going to need to help power our lives. In 2023, as we already discussed, data centers consumed 176 terawatt hours of electricity. Hyperscale data centers, as we touched on, can use 100 plus megawatts of power. And in Minnesota, Amazon actually proposed a 600 megawatt data center. This would be the equivalent to using the electricity to power 180,000 homes. AI workloads can consume 1,000 times more electricity than a traditional web search. So now that we've talked about this a little bit at the larger scale, let's bring it down to your bill that you get every month in the mail. Do you mind going back to the slide on energy, please? Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So if we take a look here at this graphic in the middle, the Natural Resource Defense Council estimates that without any reforms, capacity costs would total $163 billion from 2028 to 2033. This means that we could see $70 per month increases for the average household on our electric bills. That's in addition to what we already pay on our electric bills, to be clear. So that would be an additional $70 per month increase. And this graphic here in the middle demonstrates all of the different electrical utilities that are in PJM territory. As we can see on the far left side, that is ComEd and that number that I talked about before and how that affects your electricity bill month by month. So now that I've talked about the doom and gloom, I'm going to pause, but don't worry, we will be talking about solutions.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Wow, big numbers. Somewhat good with math. That's quite the increase. Yes. Mohammed, could you tell us a little bit more about the different approaches to data center technologies and the various economic benefits?
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned during my slides, we have a different type of data centers, and we can have a different type of energy approach for each of those data centers. But I want to focus on hyperscale data centers. That is the main topic for today's discussions. So we have a different energy technologies. We have solar panels, wind turbines, battery storage, and also we have a fossil fuels options like fossil fuels or even coal. We have other technologies that can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions of these fossil fuel energy resources such as carbon capture and storage. We also have other renewable technologies such as hydrogen and geothermal that can produce clean energy for these hyperscale data centers. In terms of the cooling system, we have a different type of cooling system, and each type of cooling system can provide different water efficiency and consume different amount of water for hyperscale data centers. They can be based on water-based cooling system, air-based cooling system, and also liquid-based cooling system. Any of these technologies have different environmental impacts and have a different benefits. In terms of economic, we need to understand what is our point of view and what we are calculating. If we are talking about the economic benefits for developers or for hyperscale developers and AI companies, and remember that all of these numbers are in hand of probably 10, 20 people in the United States. Almost 5 to 6 companies will consume all of this energy. So we are talking about a big investment and big economy. Like a typical hyperscale data centers can produce around $1.5 billion revenue yearly. So we are talking about large numbers. So of course, there are lots of benefits for that part of those stakeholders. There could be also some benefits for local communities. For example, short-term construction jobs during this massive construction, or more long-term jobs related to technology and IT-related jobs. And also there could be some local economic benefits in terms of observing other industries and attentions because of this type of data centers. And it can also improve the digital infrastructure of the local communities, and there could be some other economic or infrastructure benefits that we will hopefully discuss in these sessions. But this type of economic benefits or environmental impacts really depends on the size of hyperscale data centers, the local policy design, and the situation and the area of the data center that is going to be built.
Sure. That's awesome. I love ending on that local side because that's what we're all here to learn about. But to take one medium step backwards, on over to Maria. The Great Lakes water is shared by quite a few states with different environmental and economic priorities. How does the Great Lakes Alliance work regionally to align on data center policies?
Yes, we work in 8 states, and what we usually do, we advocate, we work together with state advocates, with organizations, with universities, to work to understand what's going on in every state, and we try to harmonize around the region the same policies, the same research, the same technology advancements in order to have the region in the same status in the same way. For example, we know the Power Act that Illinois has here is developing. We are using that model as an example for the other states to include some of the topics that the Power Act includes. That's one example. Another example is we know that some communities have agreed and have successfully signed community benefit agreements with some data centers. So that model we try to bring to other states and to encourage communities to do the same activities in order for them to receive the benefits of these agreements. So that's a way that we work with the state advocates and with all the states in the region.
Awesome. That's amazing. I want to give a quick reminder to the crowd. If you guys have questions that you'd like, please write them on your orange cards and give them a little wave to the volunteers. We'll be collecting those shortly. So I think we have all acknowledged that data centers are necessary. Someone's got to keep my 2,000 selfies on hand. And as a partner of ours, the Conservation Foundation of DuPage recently wrote, "We're not saying no to data centers. Rather, we are saying build it responsibly." Certainly a theme I've heard here tonight. So what is your vision for the most sustainable path forward to building centers, data centers? Mohammed, I'll let you kind of key this off, but if you guys have thoughts, feel free.
Sure. I think the most sustainable pathway is to be transparent with communities and public audience. Like in terms of the energy, what is the total energy that a specific hyperscale data center is going to consume in the next 20 years, 30 years, and what would be happen to the peak demand of the residential electricity consumptions. They should be transparent in a way, and they should be transparent in a energy supply pathways. Do they want to do renewable energy, go with the renewable energy, or do they want to go with the fossil fuels? They should be transparent, and they should report on at least yearly to the public audience. Also for the water consumption, how they want to supply water, what would be the water consumptions of data centers. Those are numbers that should be released with public audience, and those are simple numbers that can be that are understandable, and they are easy to compare different type of data centers. And also land use is also another important part of the sustainable pathway. Do they want to go with the industrial zones, or do they want to use other zones, and what would be the change to the ecosystem of the that specific local community? I think the sustainable pathway should include this type of requirements and consider environmental, social, and economic or cost benefits, economic and cost impacts of that specific data centers at least at high level. There are some security things, or there are some competitions among different hyperscalers, but they need to share at least their high level numbers so people can understand what would happen to their local ecosystems.
What an important thing to advocate for. Thank you. We'll hand it back to Zoe for a moment to talk through legislation that was introduced in Illinois recently regarding data centers. Can you speak to the Power Act and how it would impact data centers as well as Illinois residents? I'll go back to our little slide to help folks out.
Thank you so much. Yes, so as we've discussed, the Power Act was introduced here in Illinois recently. The Power Act is short for Protecting Our Water, Energy, and Ratepayers from Data Center Impacts. So some aspects of this legislation would include new interconnection rules for data centers, meaning data centers could be put into their own separate rate class to prevent consumers like you and I from subsidizing the costs of data center build out. There's also a part of this legislation that I and others lovingly call Beyonce, which means bring your own new clean capacity and energy. It's a great acronym. So the idea being that these data centers are required to bring their own new clean energy generation, whether it be wind power, solar power. So that has the goal of presenting really just preventing any additional strain on our existing electrical capabilities. It also includes water efficiency requirements and transparent reporting, as we've discussed. And it has to include transparent public engagement and community benefits when we're talking about data centers being implemented at the local scale. There's also the Federal Power for the People Act. This would hold data centers accountable and make them, and not us, customers, pay their costs. So the Illinois legislation is super important, but as we discussed, PJM spans 13 different states. So it would also be ideal for us to be able to address this issue at a wider scale at the national level so that we don't have data centers scurrying over to the next state instead and using dirty fossil fuels to power their generation. I will also say, on a positive note as well, in terms of electricity prices, SURGA was passed here in Illinois back in the fall, short for the Clean and Reliable Grid Affordability Act. So this act was meant to help keep electricity reliable and affordable. So it plans to bring 3 gigawatts of battery storage systems onto the grid by 2030. It also involves a virtual power plant component where consumers who have rooftop solar or battery storage systems who produce too much power, they don't need to use all that power. They can send some of it back to the grid and receive a credit for that. This act also includes expanding upon existing energy efficiency programs through your utilities. So I just want to note that legislative actions are really important, but you can also try to implement some things on your own personal bills. So I've included some resources today from ComEd, such as energy efficiency programs that you can tap into. There's also a really great program here in Illinois called Community Solar that I don't have the time to talk about today, but I would encourage you to take a look at those handouts to also think about ways that you yourself can be more energy efficient in your home. So I've included some QR codes here. If you would like to urge your legislator to vote yes on the Power Act, you can scan that QR code. And if you feel really strongly, the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition that Citizens Utility Board, my organization, is a part of, and the Alliance for the Great Lakes is a part of as well. We're a big driver of introducing the Power Act, and every year we do a climate lobby day where a ton of activists go to Springfield and talk to their legislators about why they think the legislation would be important. So if you had a strong desire to go down to Springfield, talk to your legislators about why you want the Power Act to pass, definitely reach out to me. I have my business cards here today too. I don't think the date is solidified yet, but it's typically in the springtime. It's most likely going to happen in April. So just wanted to make people aware of that. And one other thing, you can urge Congress to pass the Power for the People Act as well at the federal level using that QR code.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I'm going to pitch it to Maria quickly to tell us an example of something that's a takeaway action item you'd love to see from us attendees, while the volunteers bring on up for me what questions to prepare for us all. Thank you, guys.
Well, I think that the most important thing is what you are doing today. You are learning, you are educating yourself, and the next step will be participate in this kind of activities that Zoe is inviting you all. I think it is important for you to go and talk to the legislators. We know that when communities come to speak to the legislators, they pay more attention to you than to lobbyists. If you tell your story, if you tell your testimony, they care about that. At least they smile at you. Yeah, so just be active and proactive in this kind of activities, participate, and in these kind of events as well. It's very good to have you all. So that's the call for action.
Well, thank you all for being engaged, I think is the summary there. We have a couple questions from the audience we're going to throw to, so whoever feels most prepared to give a moment's answer, here we go. What is the outage potential, aka blackouts, to adjacent homes due to enormous electricity demand? Is that somewhere that we are right now as a society?
So the question is, if there is a data center located right next to a person's home, does that increase their risk of blackouts and things of that nature?
Essentially.
Okay. I don't have as much experience with data centers in terms of their proximity to homes. I will say, though, the usage from data centers is more of like an overall grid issue rather than a localized issue, because it places strain on the electricity grid for everyone if these data centers have to run during hours of peak demand. So like one piece of the legislation that I would like to point out in relation to this question, I mentioned lovingly Beyonce bringing your own new clean energy generation. So part of that legislation incentivizes data centers to provide that new clean energy generation. And if they do, they can actually jump ahead in the queue to interconnect to the electrical grid, because there are long wait times to connect to the grid right now with PJM. That's another major issue for another day. But let's say a data center ignores the clean energy generation requirement and they produce using fossil fuels. Well, they may be subject to having to turn off their systems during times of peak demand, where everybody wants to use their air conditioning on a hot summer day. So that's just an example of how legislation can help mitigate impacts of extremely high data center energy usage.
And also, it's important in this type of situation. It's important that the community is involved in the policy design process, because hyperscale data centers are capable to somehow provide energy for electricity grid as a backup solutions and increase the resiliency of the electricity grid. But it should be a part of a plan. It's not there always, but it can be a part of plan. So it's very important to ask and increase the public awareness of this type of things, that we can support electricity grid and improve resiliency if we provide the right technology, right energy technology in supplying power in hyperscale data centers.
As Beyonce would say, upgrade ya. Thanks. So we have a question on kind of the health risks. I wonder if anyone can speak to around perhaps noise levels from backup generators or air pollution standards from burning any fuel or things like that that are needed for the backup side. Any thoughts? Mohammed?
Yeah, in terms of the noise and health issues, I can talk about backup generation, because they are mainly fossil fuel based, and in terms of the testing those equipment or running those equipment at high peak, they can produce local emissions. That's different from greenhouse gas emissions that we usually talk about. Those are all global, have a global impacts, but in local community, emissions like the NOx or this type of pollution can cause because of using this backup power generation. Cooling systems can also provide some noise depending on the type of technology. That's another issue. And also sometimes they can contaminate water. What I think you both can talk about water more than me, but they can contaminate water, and it depends on the policy design. It depends on the development plan and the type of water cooling technology.
That's great. Let me just add. Yes, and in the water topic, what we are also fighting as part of this process of reporting is the water quality they discharge. Some people say and maybe you know this answer, some people say in the cooling process they use PFAS, and PFAS go through the discharge water. So as you all know, this is a forever chemical that will stay in our rivers, in our water resources. So yeah, water pollution is one concern, and of course all the consequences of that water polluted in the systems, in the ecosystems, and in the health of the communities.
And this type of information can be released in transparent communication with local communities, like the type of cooling system, the amount of water, and the recyclability of the water. For example, if they claim 95% recyclability, then the question is what would happen to that 5%? Do they want to treat those properly and then released to the environment or not? Those are the questions that we should ask.
That is the next question, in fact. There's reports around some centers using salt water for cooling or gray water. What is the kind of best approach if they gotta use water?
Well, we don't know yet. We haven't found the research regarding water discharge on data centers. We don't know the quality of the water, and that's the thing that we are just arguing. It's legislators reporting is important. We need to know what's going into our water resources. Once we know what it is in our water resources, then we know how to treat that water resource. But if we don't know, that's a big question that we have asked.
That's why we need financial support for doing research to understand the sequence of our decisions.
Spoken like a true doctorate. I love that. Well, we're coming up on time here. I want to give you each 30 seconds to say if there is anything that you didn't get a chance to mention or plug tonight that you would like to while we have this audience, and then we'll wrap up.
Thank you. Well, 30 seconds. First of all, water flows. So one thing that one state is doing affects other states. Water doesn't know borders. So we all share the same water resources, and water is bipartisan. We all depend on water resources on one way or another.
I will say at Cub, we love to talk about this. Energy efficiency is the cheapest, form of energy you can use, and making energy efficiency improvements saves you money in lifetime costs for your home. So when you're thinking about your electricity bills, just think about ways that you can be more energy efficient. I also will plug super fast. Cub does a thing called utility bill clinics. So if you want a one-on-one look at your gas and electric bills, we can provide you suggestions to be more energy efficient, save a bit of money. And I will say the issue with data centers and providing clean energy generation for them, this also applies to our energy economy as a whole. We're grappling with a lot of different energy decisions right now here in Illinois on how to proceed with the cheapest and cleanest forms of energy through things like the future of gas regulatory proceedings. So I would just encourage you to be aware, tap in, share your opinion. Your voice matters as a constituent, as a consumer. So just stay informed, and thank you for coming.
Yeah, I would say that we have the technology to provide clean energy and clean water. But the matter is, you want those type of technologies, and do you want your leaders provide enough resources to provide clean energy and clean water for local communities or not?
Love that. 1 moment.
I just want to share that now in March we are going to launch a playbook. It's called Regional Playbook that will help all communities to face and to ask the right questions on data centers, on how to organize yourselves prior the data center comes to town, and how to make a condition with the mayor before citing the project to agree on the community benefit agreement. So that book or that playbook will be available on March. So if you follow the Alliance for the Great Lakes, that's a good source of information for all of you.
Thank you. I think we all heard awesome new information tonight. I am so thankful for our panelists for their expertise. We heard themes especially around transparency, around planning on the front end, thinking regionally but acting locally. So I hope everyone here tonight and online can take away some of those action items. On behalf of Greener Grove, Go Green Glen Ellyn, and Go Green Villa Park, I want to give a quick shout out and thank you to our panelists. One moment here of admin stuff on behalf of our organizations. For example, Greener Grove has an open board position opening up that we'd like to plug. Earth Week is coming up here in April. Check out our website for information on that. Jacqueline would like to close us out with some information as well. I, again, cannot thank y'all enough for staying engaged on such an awesome topic.
Sure.
Sure.
Someone's mic. Thank you so much. And thank you, Chloe, for moderating and bringing all that energy. That was fantastic. Really appreciate everyone coming out tonight, and I think the themes around community engagement and transparency, there's a beautiful display of that in here tonight, all these people looking to be engaged and involved on this issue, so thank you. So just a couple things before you leave. Zoe mentioned the Power Act. There is a fact sheet about the bill on the table on the way out, so make sure that you look at that, and there's other resources from CUB as well about energy efficiency. Please visit all the Go Green Villa Park, Greener Grove, and Go Green Glen Ellyn tables to find out more about how you can volunteer. You can get some swag. You can get involved. And there's also on the table as you walk out at the end of the night, if you want to consider a donation to any of the sponsoring or partnering organizations tonight, nonprofits, we would greatly appreciate it. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming.